I want you to think retainers. And what that means is you're going to be able to look at a nonprofit client, get into a sales call, and make sure then that you communicate with them because let's face it, we need time to write grants. We need time to get results. $250,000 sounds like a lot of money. And it is, but it definitely is very doable to make $250,000 in your grant writing business in 1 year. And all you need, even if you were very conservative, is 8 clients. All right, so let's break this down. Hi, I'm Holly Rustick with Grant Writing and Funding and the Freelance Grant Writer Academy and the Grant Professional Mentorship. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get all of our great information. All right, so let's talk about being a grant professional, especially in 2025, and looking at all of the different ways of how you can still make $250,000 easily in 1 year. And these are things that people in the Freelance Grant Writer Academy and the Grant Professional Mentorship do. All right, the first thing you need to do as you're growing your grant writing business up to 250 is you really streamline your services. Okay, so 8 clients really isn't that much. And I'm going to give you the math on how I got there. But here's the thing. Having rinse and repeat systems, even if that means a way to onboard clients that's already automated and it gets you all the information and you don't have to go back and forth in emails, is going to save you a ton of time. Also, at $250,000 a year, you're also able to hire some help to have grant writers inside your business, just even as contractors, assist you. And you could still make really good money, over $200,000 easily, even when hiring someone. All right, so before we do the math, here's what you need to know. You need to know that you need to streamline your services. So having a service that you can repeat, as far as even if you're working with different clients, like a community-based nonprofit, an arts organization nonprofit, and different types of nonprofits, and they all have their own priorities. Once again, you can still streamline your onboarding, streamlining the services that you actually provide. So we love to do retainers. So one of the first things you actually might have to do is stop charging hourly and get into retainer basis, right? And that is going to allow you to scale your services. So what you can do is, instead of just taking on a client here or writing 5 grants in 3 months and doing these little packages, I want you to think retainers. And what that means is you're going to be able to look at a nonprofit client, get into a sales call, and make sure then that you communicate with them because let's face it, we need time to write grants. We need time to get results. If we're just in and out trying to write the first grant that you can find right away that's open, for one, it might not be the best aligned grant. And 2, you might not have time. You're always having to get to know new nonprofits over and over and over again because you're just churning them. You want to have long-lasting relationships with your nonprofit clients, and to start the relationship saying, hey, we're going to start together. We're going to have 12 months together. And what we're going to do is every month you just pay X amount. And instead of giving them this huge figure for the entire year, they're just going to pay you monthly. And you're going to have X number of deliverables each month. And you're also going to show them a timeline. When you come on in the first month, we're going to onboard you. We're also going to be writing maybe a master grant application. We're going to start doing the grant prospecting research. In month 2, we're going to continue that on, and we might apply for the first grant there, right? And then months 3 through 12, we'll be writing or doing X number of funding assets per month. And note I'm saying funding assets. This is the new 2025 and beyond language for all grant professionals. Tuck this away. What you can do then is now you actually have time to get to know them, to really be able to write a strong master grant template so you really get them on board with what their priorities are. And so they stop throwing you grants at the last minute every second with new priorities. Be like, nope, these were your 1 to 3 priorities for the year. This is what we're focusing on. And then when you build out the grant prospecting research, you're going to be able to find maybe 15 funding opportunities for them this year. You're already going to be able to start scheduling them that out. So if they do throw you grants at the last minute, all you have to say, well, you can say a couple of things. You've got some policies you can put in there too. But one of the main things you can say is these are the grants we already identified this year. This is what we're writing. This is how many are included within our funding prospects or assets for the entire year. All right. So in a way, even if you have you're finding different grants, but you're doing the same systems. So if you onboard 4 clients at once, you have the systems and you still have the time to be able to onboard them, to be able to do the different writing. You have essentially 2 months before you may even start writing grants because you're doing all that introduction, which is so important. All right, so let's do the math now. How do you reach $250,000 by doing this, Holly? You can give me a system. What are these funding assets and how do they actually roll out? Well, you could say we're going to do 12 to 15 funding assets throughout the year. The master grant application can be one. The funding prospect research can be one, right? Or it could count as 2 assets because it's taking a little bit longer. If you're writing foundation grants, those could be 1 asset. If you're writing a state grant, maybe that's 2 assets. So I would also include that in like that asset talk in your asterisks. Other funding assets that we're recommending that you do, so instead of typically writing like 12 to 15 foundation grants for the year, we're also saying, why don't you open that up a little bit? Why don't you go ahead and say, it could be 10 foundation grants, but if you also want us to write a donor appeal letter, if you also want us to write a corporate solicitation letter, and if you also want us to, write something else like a press release or something, that could be an asset that could take the place. So give the organizations a little opportunity to say, ooh, we could use your services to actually get things other than grants, right? And that could be a lower lift that they could get some money in with that fundraising letter that you wrote for them. So you're also helping them get more success. So that is a side note, that is a bonus plus for you, right? So let's talk the math now, because you want to know how to make $250,000 as a grant consultant. So here's how you do it. How much do you charge for this? Well, it really depends on what kind of clients you have. I'm also saying the lowest lift possible right now. We have to understand how people are responding. So the lowest lift possible is what we find is the sweet spot is anywhere between $2,500 to $3,000 a month, right? So if you were to say, okay, I'm going to charge $2,500 a month, usually those organizations are probably going to be having, at least $250,000 to maybe $1 million per year in annual operating funds. If they're smaller than that, that might be a larger lift. So you would reduce the cost, but then you would reduce the number of assets developed. And you would really say, what are the most important ones, right? As a consultant, you need to identify that. So when you reduce your price, you reduce your scope of work. You don't necessarily have to reduce your length of time though, because you can do, for a lower lift, okay, we're going to work 5 hours a month, kind of is what it looks like, but we're going to deliver this 1 asset per month, that sort of thing. And that can be absolutely fine. Or maybe it takes us 2 months to develop the asset, but we're still meeting monthly. So you're still having a consultation and you're hearing what's going on. So that is absolutely fine. But let's go in this sweet spot so you can just see what's kind of an easy lift right now for those types of organizations. You could, if you were charging, let's say even go on the lower end, $2,500 a month for maybe 12 to 15 assets, and I already gave you some ideas of what those could be. And I would say if you're writing a federal grant in there, that's going to take the place of at least 3 assets, right? So you would have to do the math on the assets. But if you did $2,500 a month, that's $30,000 a year, right? For one client. But $2,500 a month sounds so much better than $30,000, right? But even at $30,000, it's way less than they would pay for a staff grant writer. And you are giving specialized services. So it's still a drop in the bucket and it's still a win for them. So at 8 clients at $30,000 each, that's $240,000 there. So all you would need is 8 clients to essentially reach $250,000. Yes, it's $10,000 off, but you could take in 1 side grant there to fill that gap. Or like I said, if you're charging $3,000 a month instead of $2,500, that would easily put you over the $250,000. That's all it is. And before you go like, oh my gosh, Holly, but that 8 clients, that's a lot, or that's not too much, or whatever. 8 clients is really not that much when you have systems in place, when you have a retainer in place, when you're doing the same onboarding and the same, even if it's different documents, you're still doing funding assets. You still know how to repurpose your master grant application. You're still doing that first. You're still doing the prospecting second, etc. You can easily train someone to come on. So even if you have someone come on to help you and say you're paying them anywhere between $50 to $75 an hour to help you, and they're putting in 20 hours a month just to do some of the repurposing, to write that master grant applications for you because they're going to have all the onboarding information, or they're doing the grant prospecting and the mix of things, right, with those 20 hours, that's anywhere between $1,000 to $1,500 a month that you would be paying for help. For the year, that's anywhere between $12,000 to $18,000 that you're paying for help. So if you minus that from $250,000, you're still making a lot of money. You're getting the support you need. You're not doing all of the assets. You still have time to do your sales. This is not a heavy lift. Now, let's think about your next objection. But Holly, 8 clients is a lot to get. Is it? Because look at how many nonprofits are in your area. There are over 1.5 million nonprofits in the United States alone. You can easily find nonprofits, and there are not anywhere near that many of grant writers. And especially in this day and age, if you're throwing in other funding assets so they can diversify their funding streams and still find new grant funding opportunities, amazing. You can do this with just easy marketing. So easy. Inside the academy, if you're new to grant writing, if you're new to business, or you've only been in business for about a year and it's a hot mess, then you are definitely going to want to get cleaned up with our sales system, with our services. We can help identify what's a good retainer for you, how to message that, and so much more. And if you're already a seasoned grant professional, but you're not bringing in $250,000 per year yet, you're going to want to join our mentorship because we'll show you how to do the systems and how to hire someone and to communicate with them so they can give you assistance when you're at that level. And remember, if you're working on federal grants, you're not going to be charging $2,500 a month. You're going to be doing a lot more, anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 a month. So you could literally just have just a few clients and still reach $250,000. But you would definitely want to reduce the number of assets as well because federal grants take more time. We can help you figure out all of this inside our programs because it can feel overwhelming if you don't know what to do and then you get paralyzed in your sales. We want to make sure that you are having the best grant writing business possible and getting the best results for your clients. So on 8 clients, that's how you can reach 250,000, 240, but just about there in 1 year, just like our students.